Day 4 of the people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump is currently underway. Earlier today, a harrowing moment outside of the court where a man set himself on fire in the area designated for protesters. We'll talk about that and the potential security implications later in this broadcast. But happening right now inside the courthouse, a pivotal hearing focused on the scope of questioning. If, and this is a huge if at this point, Donald Trump should take the stand in his own defense. With the 12 jurors and 6 alternate jurors who will determine Donald Trump's fate now selected, the Trump trial has turned to an important question, one on which the entire trial could ultimately hinge. And that is, what is fair game? Should the ex-president take the stand? Prosecutors believe that they should be able to bring up a veritable laundry list of Trump's past misdeeds over the years, including the verdict in the civil fraud trial, where the ex-president was found to have committed years of financial fraud. Prosecutor Matthew Colangelo said this, quote, "The repeated fraud and illegality is highly relevant to this case right now." Prosecutors also want to introduce the verdicts in the E. Jean Carroll trials, where Trump was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation. Prosecutors also want to bring up the settlement the Trump Foundation struck with the New York Attorney General, as well as Trump's businesses being convicted by the Manhattan DA for tax fraud. All of it to, quote, impeach the credibility of the defendant, as prosecutors put it today. The DA also wants to bring up a frivolous lawsuit that Trump brought against Hillary Clinton, one that led to a penalty and a rebuke from the judge that reads in part, quote, "Trump is a prolific and sophisticated litigant who is repeatedly using the courts to seek revenge on political adversaries. He is the mastermind of strategic abuse of the judicial process." Team Trump argues that prosecutors should be barred from asking about any and all of those cases. Regarding the verdict in the civil fraud trial, Trump's attorneys arguing that if to bring it up would send jurors down a, quote, rabbit hole. That's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard is back outside the courthouse for us. Plus, former acting Solicitor General, MSNBC legal analyst Neil Katyal is here. With me at the table once again, New York Times investigative reporter Sue Craig is back. She spent the day inside the courthouse. Also joining us, the host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC and the president of the National Action Network, the Reverend Al Sharpton, is here. Vaughn Hilliard, I start with you. You're at the scene of all the action. Bring us up to speed.
Right. It was a difficult day here, particularly in the middle of the day, just before lunch break, when right after those 6 alternates were officially sworn in and we were able to announce that we had a full jury slot of 18 individuals. There was a man outside of the courthouse just about 100 yards away from the door who lit himself on fire. And it was a couple minutes before law enforcement was able to put out those flames. I mean, this was a difficult scene here, and I want to be very clear about what we know about the man at this time, that the man is somebody from not only internet writings, but also a pamphlet that he had thrown just before setting himself ablaze, that is a deep conspiracy theorist here. This is not directly related to Donald Trump's trial or even Donald Trump, but this is a man who is alleged a vast conspiracy that includes the American government, politicians, university, major financial figures. And I won't go further down the rabbit hole, but I can tell you that this is not somebody who is a partisan, it apparently it seems to be, but somebody who has gone down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories that led them to use this mass media moment for the act that this person engaged in. But of course, the headline that we're looking at is the fact that we've got a jury and we're looking at potential opening statements this upcoming Monday morning, and we don't know exactly who the witnesses are going to be first called. But you said about those Sandoval hearing, the Sandoval hearing, where currently these potential cases, past trial determinations from the E. Jean Carroll defamation suit to the civil fraud trial, if Donald Trump were to testify, there are current deliberations over the extent to which the prosecution could cross-examine Donald Trump about those very cases, and this is going to come down to the determination of Judge Merchan here in the upcoming hours.
So let me bring you in on Vaughn's reporting. It was not lost, I guess, on the jurors that this tragic event took place outside. Tell us what that was like.
We're not sure what they know or what they knew when it was going on, but they left, and I'm sure they saw the commotion and have seen what happened. It was really striking, though, because we were inside the overflow room. Most of the reporters are in an overflow room because the actual courtroom is kept empty so the jurors can queue and they're not seen by reporters. Mm-hmm. So we were all there right as it was announced that we had a full complement of jurors and alternates, that's when news started to spread through the overflow room that this had happened outside. The room was frozen, we weren't allowed to leave, but it happened at the same time. And I can't imagine, given what we saw in the morning session, which I'll talk about, that what happened just around noon, 1 o'clock is not going to be weighing on some of them over the weekend. In what we saw this morning, it was I have to say, it was an emotional morning for some of the jurors. These are jurors who, the judge says to them when they're initially spoken to, if you have any reason why you don't want to serve, whether you don't like Trump or you love him and you don't think you can be fair, or you have a vacation coming up or young kids at home, leave now. You don't have to explain it. So these are the people that got through that process. And we saw 3 or 4 people come in today while they were being questioned who decided that they wanted to leave, that they couldn't do it. And one woman got so emotional, she started to cry and she said, I can't do it. The anxiety was just too much, and she was crying, and the judge called her up and spoke to her, and she was recused. But two people got to that level and said it. And we lost 2 jurors earlier in the week where they had agreed to do it and came in and said no. So right now we've got the full complement, and it's starting on Monday. But I can't imagine that event outside the courtroom, which was just haunting for everybody involved, that it's not going to be weighing on the jurors this weekend.
Talk about the stakes of Vaughn's second piece of reporting about this hearing over what evidence will be permitted.
It's huge because it's going to determine what he will be able to be asked on cross-examination. Ultimately, it will determine whether or not he takes the stand. It can also become important on appeal, but it's really at the heart of whether or not he's going to testify. If the scope is limited on what he can be asked, he may decide to. But if it's wide open, I can't imagine he's going to open himself up to that sort of cross-examination.
And Vaughn, when are we expecting decisions or rulings on the evidence from Judge Juan Merchan?
We're expecting here over the course of this afternoon. This process could take as short as an hour here. They're already currently, I believe, on the 4th previous trial determination that they are going through. Of course, it's the prosecution that first presents why they believe that they should be able to bring up these determinations. One of the prosecutors for the district attorney's office saying, quote, "It's hard to think of something that is more squarely in the wheelhouse than a finding by a judge of persistent and repeated fraud and illegality." And just a moment ago, another quote I'll read you. "There is a particular need for the people to introduce evidence to assess the defendant's credibility, and they intend to make witness credibility the centerpiece for the trial, and that is an argument for permitting this evidence here," essentially making the case that, look, the defense wants to call into question the credibility of the witnesses. Well, we should use prior trial determinations by juries and judges to be able to therefore question the defendant, Donald Trump.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.